Its 36-year mission was to research peculiar new universes, search out abnormal, gigantic shafts and new plasmas, and firmly go where no test has gone previously. Voyager 1 has been making its way through space for more than 40 years as of now, and in that time it has blown away its basic mission. The rocket was just expected to get by for a long while, yet it completely misjudges, showing all assessments. Presently, it has exceeded all expectations. Pilgrim 1 has as of late perceived dark particles passing by in space, and this disclosure has changed all that. The plasma comes from the impact of B stars quite some time in the past, and that plasma conveys with it the appealing field of the world. Go along with us as we reveal what these dark things are, and the way that they could modify how we've looked at information everlastingly. For the recent years, we've essentially recently looked at information from inside the close by planet bunch. However, because of Wayfarer 1, we presently approach information from outside as well. In August 2012, Pilgrim 1 officially arrived at the completion of the planetary gathering and crossed the heliopause. Nonetheless, this was most certainly not a basic task, as Traveler 1 produced some separation from the Sun. How much light accessible to drive its instruments and structures decreased essentially. The space mechanical assembly's power is essentially created by 3 radioisotope thermoelectric generators, REGs, that convert the intensity conveyed by the regular decay of plutonium-238 into control over the long run. The reducing heat result of the REGs has brought about a lessening in accessible power. This diminishing in power impacts the activity of different frameworks ready, including logical instruments, information transmission, and correspondence limits. To proportion energy, certain immaterial frameworks and instruments have been deactivated or set in a dormant state. As the power keeps on declining, basic frameworks should be additionally redesigned or closed down to broaden Pilgrim 1's functional life expectancy. In the event that it keeps on working, it presumably will not be as useful to us. The gigantic distance between Pilgrim 1 and Earth likewise presents a critical test in keeping up with successful correspondence. As the bus meandered into interstellar space, the transmission strength debilitated altogether, and it presently assumes control north of 21 hours for transmissions to go from Adventurer 1 to Earth. The feeble transmission, joined with impedance from Foundation commotion, represents a significant impediment to viable information transmission and get-together. Notwithstanding power issues, there are temperature challenges. Advancing from the heliosphere to interstellar space opens Pioneer 1 to different temperature conditions. Inside the heliosphere, the space mechanical assembly was nearer to the Sun and experienced higher temperatures. As it meandered into interstellar space, it experienced extremely low temperatures, which can influence the space contraption's materials, electronic parts, and frameworks. Warm pressure and warm development and withdrawal cycles could affect the underlying respectability of explicit parts. Outrageous virus can make materials become fragile, possibly prompting breaks or debasement of seals and connectors. These temperature varieties likewise influence the presentation of the REGs, which are intended to work inside unambiguous warm ranges. Cooling of the REGs diminishes power yield, intensifying the power difficulties. Interstellar space isn't totally unfilled. It contains a pitiful circulation of residue particles. Albeit these particles are minuscule, they can represent a gamble to Pioneer 1. At the point when the space contraption experiences interstellar residue, the particles can collide with its outside surfaces, causing mileage on defensive coatings, getting radio wire surfaces, or other sensitive regions. The gathering of residue on the instrument's optics or sensors can upset their usefulness, corrupting information quality. Pilgrim 1 conveys a residue locator instrument explicitly intended to gauge the thickness of interstellar residue. Moreover, NASA's worldwide organization of getting dishes for speaking with profound space machines should assign restricted assets to get Pilgrim 1 transmissions, creating correspondence open doors less incessant than previously. In the midst of the flood of information, a charming disclosure emerged. Voyager 1 recognized an entrancing irregularity. A great deal of transmissions, the vast majority of them hard to decipher. However, one demonstrated the presence of 300 realized protests passing by in the gaudy broadness. These confounding substances, emerging from the profundities of interstellar space, had specialists all over the planet befuddled. The revelation of these 300 unidentified articles difficulties how we could decipher the universe. Might it be said that they are remainders of old divine bodies, drifting relics from far-off star frameworks, or do they signify the presence of already obscure peculiarities in unfamiliar spaces fit to be disentangled? Typically, when Voyager sends information, it's very simple to decipher, yet this information was mixed. So while there were a lot of inquiries, there weren't precisely any responses. Nonetheless, things took a more peculiar turn. No matter what the flighty idea of the imparted data, Wayfarer 1 itself remains obviously solid, working under astonishing circumstances. The wonderful angle was that its correspondence communicate with Earth remained in salvageable shape, holding its solidarity and allowing fundamental information to be shipped off NASA, absent a lot of issue. That's what the examination uncovered. Inquisitively, none of the space contraption's shortcoming security frameworks were set off, demonstrating that it hadn't even gone into a guarded protected mode, which would be the typical convention in the event that it identified any dangers. Thus, obviously, Wayfarer wasn't precisely enduring an onslaught. However, at that point, what could be compelling the telemetry information appeared to be mixed or mistaken? Was it a result of obstruction from outside peculiarities like radiation or high-energy particles, or was it conceivable that a totally obscure oddity was influencing everything? Assuming that the last option were the situation, it would challenge how we figure out space and correspondence in the interstellar area. The best way to be aware without a doubt was to investigate an immense range of potential factors carefully. The examination group at NASA painstakingly inspected the space contraption frameworks, taking into account the effect of astronomical radiation on electronic parts and the chance of temperature variances influencing the unwavering quality of its touchy instruments. It was possible that something was happening not long before Voyager 1 hit the heliosphere, and the typical difficulties in the climate prompted the scrambling of information. Yet, the central concern was that it wasn't exactly in the space where the standard difficulties were remembered to try and represent a danger. The group likewise examined the intricacies of Pilgrim 1's correspondence frameworks, testing potential transmission twists brought about by vast clamor obstruction or even unpretentious shifts in its direction. The mission for answers drove the group to examine potential factors cautiously. They carefully inspected the space mechanical assembly frameworks, taking into account the impact of inestimable radiation on electronic parts and the opportunity of temperature changes affecting the soundness of its sensitive instruments. While this sounds like a plan, there's a great deal that truly goes into it, and the examination went on for a long while. The group used progressed information handling strategies, created imaginative calculations, and reenacted different situations to separate the underlying driver of the surprising telemetry irregularities. By then, at that point, this was the main way they could figure out the thing might be causing the issues. In general, that work didn't go to squander. Following an extensive stretch of getting mixed information from the space contraption, scientists and experts at long last re-established the lucidity and dependability of the information gushing in from the most far-off scopes of interstellar space. The underlying driver of the issue was followed back to Pioneer 1's Mentality Control Framework, ACS, explicitly. An unforeseen source, a lethargic installed PC. Presently, you might be considering how something not even expected to be useful could create issues. NASA authorities uncovered that the ACS had some way or another started utilizing a PC that had been non-functional for quite a while, prompting the defilement of the imparted information. The remainder of the space mechanical assembly, in any case, stayed utilitarian and proceeded with its information assortment exercises unrestricted. Subsequent to distinguishing the wellspring of the issue, Designs immediately formulated an answer. They sent an order to Pioneer 1, educating the ACS to change to the right PC for sending the telemetry information. While this fix was fairly basic, it expected a ton of persistence because of the huge time differ brought about by the sheer distance among Earth and Wayfarer 1, with radio transmissions requiring almost 22 hours to travel. The investigating system required outrageous coordination. However, there was only one issue. Taking into account that Wayfarer 1 was constructed a long while back and had been working fine and dandy until this point, In any event, getting to investigating expected them to filter through certain manuals from the 70s, and they did precisely that. After cautious evaluation, they tracked down a straightforward and, for the most part, safe answer for the issue. By resetting the framework liable for information transmission, they had the option to fix the issue without slowing down some other pieces of the space contraption. The experts' mastery and devotion assumed an urgent part in effectively re-establishing the clearness of Pilgrim 1's correspondence stream. Their endeavors highlighted the significance of utilizing past information and joining it with present innovation to conquer difficulties in space investigation. Engineers suspect that Pioneer 1's deviation into utilizing the non-useful PC was set off by a defective order got from another installed framework. This hypothesis proposes the presence of a fundamental issue inside, which also wandered further into the immense region of interstellar space, gathering information that could reshape how we might interpret the universe. As it proceeds with its excursion, the data it sends back offers significant bits of knowledge into the circumstances and peculiarities tracked down past our nearby planet group. Each new finding from Wayfarer 1 adds to a more extensive image of the universe, uncovering the intricacies of interstellar conditions. Researchers are especially keen on how vast beams, attractive fields, and the communications of different heavenly bodies influence the way of behaving of particles around here. The mission fills in as a significant indication of the significance of steadiness in logical investigation. Regardless of the difficulties, the capacity of Wayfarer 1 to adjust and conquer impediments delineates the versatility of room innovation. Specialists and researchers stay committed to guaranteeing that the mission keeps on working productively, even as the difficulties of distance and climate develop. As we plan ahead, Pioneer 1's heritage will without a doubt impact impending missions and exploration endeavors. The information gathered could rouse new innovations and systems, further upgrading our ability to investigate further into the universe. All in all, the continuous excursion of Traveler 1 pushes the limits of our insight, as well as features the cooperative soul of established researchers. With every transmission, we are helped to remember our position in the universe and the potential for disclosure that lies ahead.